Joel Bregman, can you hear me? It's fully here.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Fantastic. All right. So I was saying that at the end of it all, once this process is done and dusted, the public hearings start today. What you're seeking here is about electoral accountability. What is it in the end that you want to see being done by political parties, and why?
So this is something that My Vote Counts has been advocating for since 2012, the regulated disclosure of the private funding of political parties. And when we look at the damage that the unregulated financing of private funding of parties has contributed to in terms of capture and corruption, the weakening of our institutions, it's vital that we have this new regime that people can, for once and all, know where the money is coming from, know what interests are potentially being pursued, and allow us to hold people to account to connect the dots between business interest and politics.
Interesting observation by the Chief Justice recently, Mogoeng, who suggested that members of the public should consider paying or funding the political parties' electoral campaigns, for example, so that they're not beholden to these people, these private donors that they go to in order for them to carry out their campaigns. What would your observation be or assessment be about that suggestion from the Chief Justice?
So, being in politics, political parties, it's an expensive business to be in, and it's an integral part of our multi-party democracy. So we're never going to escape the fact that money is going to be circulating in these areas. And by the public sort of taking a greater role in this and funding parties potentially, it does remove some of the obstacles. But the new Act also provides for the public funding of parties, and I think part of the problem is that we need to change our perception around funding and money in politics, and that there should be no problem with people, organizations, business proudly and openly making donations to parties whose visions they want to see come to fruition.
I'm sure you'll be aware of the very public fight between the president and the public protector over his CR17 campaign. Of course, this is an internal party matter. That's a matter within the ANC. But watching this play out in public, are these the sort of things that you're looking out for? Are these the sort of things that we should be worried about?
Absolutely. So while the new Political Party Funding Act, as you correctly say, doesn't cover internal campaign battles, these are, of course, forums where there's potential for influence peddling, where there's the same issues as in the battles between political parties. So we have publicly called on the president, on the leaders of the other main parties to come forward and disclose their campaign spending on their internal battles. It's another important element that we need to incorporate into this increased sort of transparency and accountability framework that is being developed.
Just as a last question to you, Mr. Bregman, the public hearings, they begin today. How long are they going to go on for? And when, importantly, do you envisage this bill being signed into law?
So the public hearings are just today and tomorrow. Part of what we hope will happen in the near future, though, is that the enforcement chapter, which is a crucial part of the legislation, the regulations for that still need to be developed, and we hope there will be public participation around that as well. This needs to come into effect as soon as possible. We really hope it will be ready for the 2021 elections, but we can't continue to wait for that long. We need to have this information now, and that's why we are calling on all parties and politicians to, of their own volition, come forward and, in the interest of transparency and accountability, make these disclosures to the public.
Joel Bregman, thank you very much for your time. He's a director from organization My Vote Counts.